Keanu Reeves is known for his kindness and humility, but one spoiled teenager had no idea who he was messing with. When a rich, entitled teen spotted Keanu casually browsing in a luxury store, he saw an easy target for mockery. Laughing with his friends, he ridiculed Keanu's simple outfit, assuming he was just another broke shopper out of place. But the teen's arrogance would cost him, because Keanu had the perfect response. In a shocking move, the Hollywood star did something so unexpected that it left the entire store speechless. The spoiled teen instantly regretted his words as Keanu turned the situation around in the most legendary way possible. What happened next was nothing short of unforgettable. Keanu Reeves had always been known for his humility and kindness, despite being one of the most recognizable actors in Hollywood. Unlike many other celebrities, he didn't flaunt his wealth or status. He was often seen taking the subway, chatting with everyday people, and even helping strangers without expecting anything in return. But on this particular day, he found himself in an unexpected situation, one that would remind a spoiled teenager of the value of respect and humility. It all started at a high-end shopping mall in Los Angeles. Keanu had decided to take a quiet stroll through the luxurious stores, hoping to find a new book and maybe a jacket for the cooler evenings ahead. He wore a simple pair of jeans, a black t-shirt, and a worn-out leather jacket. He didn't try to hide from the public. Instead, he enjoyed blending in. He never needed to make a statement with extravagant outfits or an entourage of security guards. His presence was enough. As Keanu walked into an exclusive designer store, a teenage boy named Jake was already inside, accompanied by his friends. Jake had grown up in extreme privilege, with wealthy parents who provided him with anything he desired. He had never known a life where he had to work for anything, and it showed in his arrogant demeanor. He and his friends often mocked those who, in their eyes, didn't fit their definition of rich and important. The moment Jake noticed Keanu browsing through a rack of jackets, he smirked and nudged his friends. "Check this guy out," he whispered loudly enough for Keanu to hear. "Looks like he just walked in off the street. Does he even belong here?" His friends chuckled, feeding off Jake's arrogance. Keanu, who had spent years dealing with the superficial nature of fame, simply ignored the comment and continued browsing. But Jake wasn't done. He strutted over to Keanu and stood beside him, pretending to examine the same rack of jackets. "Hey, buddy," Jake said mockingly. "You sure you can afford anything in here? This isn't some thrift store." Keanu finally turned to face Jake, offering him a calm smile. "I think I'll be all right," he replied casually. Jake wasn't satisfied. He wanted a reaction. He was used to people either kissing up to him or reacting angrily when he pushed their buttons. But Keanu's calm demeanor only irritated him further. He turned to his friends and said loudly, "Man, I feel bad for guys like this, probably saving up just to touch something in here." Keanu simply chuckled and shook his head, about to walk away. But then, something changed in his expression. It wasn't anger, it was a quiet realization that Jake had probably never faced consequences for his words or actions. Maybe it was time someone gave him a reality check. Keanu turned to the store manager, a middle-aged woman who had been watching the interaction uncomfortably. "I'd like to buy everything in the store," Keanu said, his voice calm but firm. The manager's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Keanu said with a slight grin. "I'll take everything. Every jacket, every shirt, every pair of shoes. Ring it all up." Jake's smirk disappeared instantly. His friends looked at each other in disbelief. "Wait, what?" Jake blurted out. "You're joking, right?" Keanu ignored him as the store employees scrambled to process the enormous purchase. The store manager, now smiling, quickly began directing her staff. Keanu pulled out his black credit card and handed it over without hesitation. Jake's face turned red. "No way. He can't. This is some kind of prank." But it wasn't. Keanu stood calmly, as the employees bagged up everything in the store. Jake, now desperate to save face, scoffed. "Okay, so what? You buy all this stuff, and then what? You don't even need it." Keanu turned to him and smiled. "You're right, I don't need it." Then he turned to the manager. "Do you know of any homeless shelters nearby? Places where people could really use new clothes?" The manager nodded quickly. "Yes, absolutely." "Great," Keanu said. "Send everything there." Jake's mouth dropped open. His friends were now whispering to each other, clearly uncomfortable. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. "Wait, so you're not even keeping any of it?" Jake stammered. Keanu shook his head. "Nope, but I hope this teaches you something." He then leaned in slightly and lowered his voice so only Jake could hear. "You never know who you're talking to. Maybe next time you'll think twice before judging someone based on appearances." With that, Keanu turned and walked out of the store, leaving Jake standing there, humiliated. The spoiled teen had gone from being the loudest person in the room to completely speechless. The news of the incident spread quickly. Store employees shared the story, and soon, it made its way to social media. People couldn't stop praising Keanu for his classy yet powerful response to entitlement. As for Jake, the experience changed him in ways he never expected. For the first time in his life, he felt true embarrassment, not just because he had been put in his place, but because he realized how shallow he had been. That moment in the store haunted him for weeks, making him rethink how he treated people. One day, Jake found himself standing outside a homeless shelter, the same one where Keanu had donated all the clothes from the store. He had thought about this place for weeks, his mind replaying that moment in the designer store over and over. At first, he had been furious, embarrassed that he had been humiliated in front of his friends. But over time, that anger faded, replaced by something he couldn't quite explain. A deep, gnawing feeling of guilt. Jake had always been told he was better than others because of his wealth. He had mocked people without a second thought, never considering their feelings. But when Keanu turned the tables on him, he felt something new, something he had never felt before. A sense of shame, not because he had been publicly put in his place, but because, for the first time, he realized how shallow he had been. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside the shelter, unsure of what to expect. The atmosphere was warm and filled with quiet chatter. Volunteers moved around handing out meals, blankets, and now, the designer clothes that Keanu had purchased. Jake watched as a middle-aged man picked up a brand new jacket, holding it in disbelief. "I've never owned anything this nice before," the man murmured, his eyes shining. Nearby, a young mother helped her little boy into a new pair of shoes, tears brimming in her eyes. Jake felt his throat tighten. He had once laughed at the idea of someone like Keanu shopping in an expensive store, assuming he didn't belong. But now, standing here, he realized that he was the one who had been out of place, not Keanu. Respect wasn't about wealth. True character wasn't about status. And sometimes, the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected people. And so, a spoiled teenager's arrogance led to a moment he would never forget, a lesson from Keanu Reeves himself.